Welcome back to another episode of PB Ballers. I'm joined by my co-founder Jason. It's been a while, but we're going to talk about a really important topic today. It's basically about Rodrigo Bentancur's 7-game suspension that he received from the English FA, how it's affecting Tottenham, Korean fans, and Son Heung-min, and also about what Tottenham are going to do about this pretty lengthy suspension. Before we kind of ask Jason his thoughts, because he's our resident Tottenham expert, I'll give you guys a brief overview. Uruguayan midfielder Rodrigo Bentancur, who plays with Son Heung-min at Tottenham, recently gave an interview with Uruguayan media, and he was talking with one of the Uruguayan presenters and just talking about his life and his professional career. And the presenter asked him, can you get me a jersey of Sonny's? And um, Bentancur unfortunately makes kind of a tasteless joke about how it wouldn't matter which one he got because, all Koreans to him look the same. And we all know that joke. We've heard it 1,000 times that all Asians look the same: Korean, Chinese, Japanese. In today's day and age, no matter what you think of that joke, it's probably not something that's not appropriate, and also something you shouldn't say to your team captain. Bentancur was suspended for 7 games after an investigation by the English FA. I actually believe an independent regulatory commission was the one that recommended the 7-game ban. Tottenham has said they will appeal it because it is quite a hefty suspension. I believe Rodrigo was going to be banned for all the EPL games and also some of the FA Cup games. The ban will not apply to the Europa League, but nevertheless, Tottenham could really use him, especially as they try to claw their way back into the top 4. Like I said, you're the resident Tottenham guy on our channel. Your first reactions to the suspension and Bentancur's comments, and then what you think the punishment should have been.
Yeah, I think thanks for the great summary, Albert. I think first and foremost, like you said, the I want to get it out of the way. The comments absolutely are unacceptable in this day and age. 100% racist, disrespectful towards Son Heung-min and the Korean fans because we have to remember Tottenham Hotspur now are a global club. They are arguably one of the most popular clubs in Korea, and whether he knows it or not, Rodrigo Bentancur before this incident was actually well loved by many, many Korean fans. I mean, we know that I know that he has a couple of cute kids, or maybe he has one cute son. And, the Korean fans go as far to, upload, little videos or little tweets as to whenever his son goes to the game. So, he's has many, many fans that he has disappointed. And I think, absolutely, I think there's without any sliver of doubt that this was a poor comment made on by Rodrigo. But for me, Albert, I think that 7 games is a hefty suspension. It is too much. I believe that the minimum that the players receive for any sort of racist remark or something like that, I could be wrong, but the minimum is 6 games. I think Korean fans were disappointed. Firstly, uh, on how both the player and the club handled the situation. There wasn't really a strong message that condemned Rodrigo's remarks. It was kind of weird because Rodrigo blamed the interviewer for the remarks. He said, how he was set up, how that's not really what he meant, how, it was portrayed in a offensive manner. But still, I think if he had owned up to his mistake better, if he had, not retracted his original apology and actually maintained, that, yeah, this was my mistake. I do think that the interviewer set me up in a way, but still, I want to apologize to the Korean fans. I think that, we would be in a very, very different situation right now. But I think Korean fans are disappointed that that really wasn't what happened. That Rodrigo kind of tried to cover himself up, and then Inch Postecoglou, the manager of Tottenham Hotspur, went on Sky Sports and backed up Rodrigo, saying how he was an unbelievable character, a really great teammate that made a mistake. And for me, I think what Inch Postecoglou said is true. I agree with what he said. He could be a great teammate. He could be a great person, but still, I think some actions need consequences. And if Tottenham were willing to accept those consequences, maybe they could have done it in a more um, better manner, a more smart way that Korean fans could accept. But I think Korean fans were just pissed off, that there wasn't a stronger response. That's one side of the story, Albert. But that being said, For me, I think that Tottenham are well within their rights to appeal this suspension if they believe that it is unfair in terms of the length and the severity, which I agree with. You know, it may seem a little bit, petty to appeal a 7 game suspension when in the best case scenario, 7 games becomes 6 games. But I think really Tottenham are appealing because they are saying, hey, like this is clearly the FA, the Football Association, trying to make an example of us. And we feel like we are almost victimized because we are the ones that are being made of an example and thus receiving a harsher penalty. And for me, I have no problems with that. I have no problems with the club appealing this suspension because if they believe that that's the case, that's well within their rights and that's well within their jurisdiction. It's just a difficult scenario for me, Albert, as a Korean Tottenham fan, because sometimes, and I say this really carefully, Korean fans can be over the top in terms of criticizing and being harsh on the players. It's not a complete one-to-one, a perfect comparison, but we saw when Lee Gang-in had that incident with Sonny before the match against Jordan in the Asian Cup, and that was leaked to the media by Jurgen Klinsmann to the Sun. We saw Korean fans' reaction. We saw how much they attacked Lee Gang-in, and how Lee Gang-in actually had to fly over to England to publicly apologize to Son Heung-min. And then once again, when he returned to Korea for the next round of the international games, how he had to, bow 90 degrees in front of the media. And that was finally an acceptable apology for the Korean fans. For me, I think, there's not one perfect answer to this, Albert, because it's such a delicate and sensitive societal issue. But for me, I'm happy with incremental, gradual, consistent progress. Like I said, I think there are many, many, many ways in which Rodrigo's and Tottenham's response to this situation could have been handled better. However, I also strongly believe in Ange Postecoglou and that the club are handling this situation in the fact that Rodrigo understands that he made a very grave mistake, how he offended not just Son Heung-min, but disappointed so many Korean fans, and that the club are going to continually work with Rodrigo and the rest of the team to ensure that this doesn't happen and to ensure that they understand why this was so offensive to the Asian people. For me, that's enough. For me, I think there should be the willingness to forgive, the willingness to understand that Rodrigo understands that he made a mistake and give him the second chance. For him to remedy the situation. I just really, really think it's sad and almost disappointing where Korean fans are calling Ange Postecoglou a fat Australian pig. They're attacking Rodrigo Bentancur on Instagram to the point where his comments have to be closed. In a day and age where social media is so prominent, I just feel like it's disappointing and almost shameful to see these kinds of attacks, personal attacks. So for me, I think it needs to be a good balance. A good balance between Rodrigo, Ange Postecoglou, and Tottenham making the right sort of apology and asking for forgiveness, but also as Korean fans and as Son Heung-min graciously accepting that apology, and maybe suggesting on how a response could have been handled better, but also be willing to give him that second chance. So I hope that wasn't too much of a ramble, too much of a tangent, but for me that was my initial thoughts on the situation.
Yeah, going back to the main point, I think that for me, you always know racism exists in football, and people are going to say, well, why are Koreans complaining? We're racist to other races. I mean, of course, every culture has its share of bad apples. They're going to make you look bad. But I think in this case, for me, it's like, yeah, well, it was a racist comment. It was insensitive and stupid, but I think Sonny has said we moved on. There's no problem. He sincerely apologized. He's a good guy. He just, he made a mistake and it happens. We move on. On one point, I do absolutely agree with him because it's your teammate and you should get along with it. And I'm sure Rodrigo's probably a lovely person. But on the other hand, I think, and I want to be careful what I'm saying, though, this also speaks to a very big problem within Latin American, South American culture. For too long, I think these countries, Uruguay, Argentina, Chile, whatever, all those countries in South America have been using this excuse that, oh, well, it's part of our culture. Whenever we see an Asian person, we call them a chino, chinito. They're all Chinamen to us, but we don't mean to be racist, right? We're just, it's just an endearing term. And I think that excuse could have worked maybe even 5, 10 years ago. But in today's world, whether you like it or not, you can't call people and judge them based on their appearance, right? I'm sure Argentinians and Brazilians or Paraguayans wouldn't like it if they came to Korea and we all just assumed they were Mexicans. I'm sure they would find that pretty offensive, and I think that this is a problem that's pretty prevalent in Latin America. You saw Enzo Fernandez with Chelsea. His case, I think, was a lot worse, saying some horrific things about the French national team on the bus when he was celebrating. And again, when it comes to race and nationality in football, it's so complicated. There's a lots of geopolitical reasons as to why maybe the French team has more players of African descent than white players. Politics, colonialism is a real thing, and we live in that world. So I think what Enzo did was a lot worse, but I think Bentancur's actions are a symptom of a much bigger problem. And I think the South American teams need to be taught a lesson in terms of, this doesn't fly. This excuse of it's your culture isn't good anymore because you know what? If it's part of your culture, maybe parts of your culture aren't so good. And I'll say that also for Korean culture as well. I love my people. I love South Korea, the country, but man, there's some things about us that we don't do well and that we need to be called out on. And it goes both ways for any race, any culture, any creed. So in that sense, I am glad that Bentancur got suspended. I think a 6-game suspension would be fair. The 7 does seem a bit harsh, so I think maybe they could get it reduced. We'll see. But Jason, let me ask you, in terms of kind of what this does to the locker room, do you think maybe it kind of shows that despite the fact that Son Heung-min has been named captain of Tottenham, he's the first ever Asian captain of an EPL team, there still seems to be a bit of a tone of disrespect towards his leadership. And I don't want to assume that's because he's an Asian or if it's because he's a nice guy, but how do you think this looks to the other players in the locker room? And going forward, do you think it'll affect team morale, especially as they try to claw back into the top four?
No, honestly, I think that it doesn't reflect, the fact that Sonny is disrespected as team captain. I think, I still think the all the players at Tottenham highly respect Sonny. I mean, the younger players absolutely because of how welcoming and caring that Sonny is towards them. Even, the 16-year-old, 17-year-old starlet that Tottenham has, Mikey Moore. Sonny is his biggest hero. He is highly, highly respected in the academy and in the younger players. And this incident, Rodrigo Bentancur, as soon as he, realized his mistake, at least according to him and according to Sonny, he immediately reached out privately and profusely apologized and asked for forgiveness, which Sonny graciously gave. And I think that the team has, and Ben Davies also, during the international duty when he was with Wales, he also said, the issue was addressed. The issue, it definitely wasn't ignored, but also that the team had kind of moved on. That they realized that what had happened, that that it was unacceptable. But as a team, they're willing to move on and push forward towards the next goal. And I've seen, I know where you're coming from, Albert. I've seen, on Twitter, on various social media platforms, where there are little instances where maybe you think that either the club or some of his teammates or the fans are disrespecting Sonny. But I think he's such a club legend. He's highly respected by just so many people, and especially has the backing of the manager, Ange Postecoglou. I wonder if this situation is heightened and in terms of response due to the unclear contract situation that Sonny has with Tottenham, and a little bit of tension that's there. Tottenham have that 1 year option that they haven't triggered yet, but there's not really talks of them wanting to extend Sonny. And I think a lot of Korean fans are like, wait, what? Like Sonny gave basically his whole career for your club, and you're not even going to extend him and let him retire at Tottenham. He's basically trophyless because he was at Tottenham. Like the least you can do, he's not even playing poorly. Yes, there has been a little bit of a decline, but the least you can do is show Sonny the respect. And if he wants to renew the contract, then perhaps why hasn't there been a contract offer? So I think there's just so many factors that are entangled in this situation, and we can't ignore the friction and the tension that's been there for a while between, I don't want to say local Tottenham fans, but the a certain section of Tottenham fans that exist on social media and Korean Tottenham fans. How there's just so much insults flying in each other's direction. How people are accusing Korean fans of just supporting Tottenham because Sunny exists, and then the vice versa. The Korean fans just getting abused um by these supporters by being called plastic, fake supporters, stuff like that. So, there's just so much involved here. But I just want for me as a Korean Tottenham fan and with Yang Min-hyuk coming in December or January, I just want to move past this. I want to, like I said, not ignore it, realize that something wrong definitely happened, but being a little more generous and giving at least Rodrigo Bentancur and Tottenham a chance to remedy the situation, and hopefully not. But the next time it happens, maybe we see a more positive response.
So I want to go back to what you said about the rift between Korean Tottenham fans and some, native English Tottenham fans, right? Obviously, we know most people are cool on social media. They all support the club, but I did notice for sure, even before this incident, a growing hatred, like you said, for some Korean fans of Tottenham. You even made a video about it earlier this year. I definitely think that the fact that these netizens are leaving so many hate comments on Bentancur's Instagram, unfortunately, is not going to lead to the reputation of Korean fans getting any better. I think some of the comments can definitely be unhinged, and like you said, Yang Min-hyuk is coming, which means that if he does develop and becomes a solid contributor, like we all expect, this won't be the last time that Tottenham fans are going to have to interact with Korean fans coming from abroad to watch their games, right? And I would assume Son Heung-min probably does stay in some capacity in London for a bit, working for the club. So this is something that really has to be nipped in the bud and buried for this club to move forward into the future. Because if it keeps festering like this, it could really lead to some unwelcome consequences down the line. Especially because obviously Bentancur isn't some kind of scrub who never contributes to the team. He's one of the most important defensive midfielders in the squad. I know Tottenham recently won today, whipping of Man City 4-0, but they got some other key games coming up against Roma in the Europa League. Next game in the Prem is also going to be against Fulham. That's also never an easy game. So right now, the Tottenham seem to be doing okay, but looking at the fixtures coming up, they could really start missing Bentancur into the latter half of this calendar year. So I'm starting to wonder if this incident, which in our eyes, from kind of like a vacuum, I think isn't that big of a deal because you can apologize and move on, could really lead to Tottenham's season kind of going in a direction that's pretty negative because they're right now, I think, pretty much on the door of the top four. The ban is going to be at least 6 games. Aren't you worried that his Rodrigo's pretty much stupid comments could lead to you guys dropping some points here, even if you did beat City today?
Yeah, I think for sure. But I also think that, barring any other further injuries, which obviously can happen in football, I think we'll be okay. Because Rodrigo can play pretty much every single Europa League game alongside Lucas Bergvall. And then for the English Premier League games, we have Pape Matar, who was incredible today, Yves Bissouma, who has been very, very solid, much improved from last year. And then, of course, Kulusevski, who's just been brilliant in his new central midfield position. And then even James Maddison looking amazing today, in his first game as a starter in a long, long time. So I think Europa League, we've pretty much already secured our spot in the next round. And then, FA Cup, the first couple of rounds, obviously there is potential for upset, but still, we should be able to beat these teams with the likes of Lucas Bergvall, Pape Matar, James Maddison, Kulusevski, and then also Archie Gray playing in the midfield as well. So I think as long as Rodrigo Bentancur plays well and stays fit through the Europa League games, from a football perspective, I'm actually not that worried. Again, it's just about the weird dynamics between the Korean fans and like I said, I don't even want to say local fans because a lot of the local fans actually appreciate the Korean fans being there and love them. It's just more so the social media people, who hide behind a fake profile picture and like to really aggravate Korean fans because Korean fans unfortunately do give the response that they are looking for. So I don't know what the best way is to address this weird relationship, Albert. But if it continues while Yang Min-hyuk is there too, I just worry that eventually the toxicity is going to be too much, and
Yeah.
we're going to see a really really bad situation happen. But like I said, it's really difficult because I don't think there is an obvious solution other than the club directly addressing it.
Yeah, and I wonder if it's partly a Prem thing because you're obviously in the biggest league in the world. There's going to be more attention, but also more toxicity. Because the comparison I want to make is that Kim Min-jae and the Bayern fans and their relationship to him, and also the Korean fans. I went to Germany earlier this year to go to one of the Bayern games and meet some of the players. What I noticed, and this is just my own personal experience, I could be wrong, is that with the fans in Germany, they were critical of Minje, but only for his on-field performances. From what I've seen and from what I've been heard when I've been there was never any mention about his background. There was never any grumbling about the Korean fans showing up. By the way, there were actually a lot of Korean fans at the game I went to in Munich, which was surprising. But it was always about his on-field performance, right? Whether it was him misplacing a pass, maybe being a little too aggressive on the press. But when it comes to Sonny and Tottenham, sometimes, like you said, there's been some kind of a weird undercurrent, I don't know what to call it, of like there was a lot of love for him mostly by the club, but then there's also a group of fans that really seem to want to pray for his downfall. And maybe it's also because of his background, because of his ethnicity, and because of a lot of the Korean fans coming to London, that I wonder if it's just maybe a case of, unfortunately, all that media attention leading to just more toxicity in general. But yeah, like you said, I'm not a Tottenham fan, but it's not good for any of us, especially with the national team, for Sonny or all the other Tottenham players to be in a toxic locker room. I think that Tottenham has been through a lot in the past few years, obviously with the sacking of Antonio Conte, Mourinho coming in for a year and things not getting much better. So there really will be a stress test for Tottenham. But for me, the good news is if you can ride this wave of games out with Rodrigo, the day this can only make you a bit stronger, I think, as a team. And yeah, I guess as we finish, Jason, after watching today's performance, what's your realistic expectations for Son Heung-min going into the rest of the season? Also, your realistic expectations of what you want from this club going into the latter half of the season.
Yeah, from like I said, privately in our group chats, multiple times. From a football perspective, this is actually the best I've felt as a Tottenham fan since the Mauricio Pochettino days. In that we finally have a clear football philosophy. We have a manager who, is willing to commit to it despite the ups and the downs, is willing to rebuild this team. And, we're playing some really exciting football. I think naturally, as a rebuilding team, there's going to be so many inconsistencies. We're going to see the losses, the frustrating losses like the one against Ipswich, but we're also going to see some fantastic performances like the 4-0 win today against City. The thing is, as fans, it's so difficult because sports is such a fickle thing. But as fans, you just gotta trust the manager, trust the vision, and give him 3, 4, 5 years to bring the players that he wants and makes sure that that he's fully supported. So from a football perspective, I'm just really excited about the project that's going on in Tottenham. In terms of Sonny, I think he's going to get his minutes managed, which I think is definitely a good thing both for Tottenham and for the national team. He's had a couple of hamstring injuries this year, and he's just getting older, right? So you just want to make sure that he's always fresh. And I appreciate that Ange Postecoglou is looking out for his health. My hope is, and call me optimistic, call me a dreamer, whatever, but I do really believe that we can lift a trophy this year, whether it's the Europa League, whether it's the Carabao Cup, the FA Cup. I believe that we have what it takes. If we get a little bit of luck with the draw, that we can make it to the finals and win a game. So for me, hopefully either a trophy ideally, or fighting for a top four finish so we can get back to the Champions League, because we really are headed in the right direction, Albert, and it would be nice to be rewarded for committing to a football philosophy and doing whatever it takes to make sure that vision is seen on the pitch.
I have a question then. If you had to pick one, I said you either get a top four finish or you can win the FA Cup, not the Europa League, but you can win the FA Cup. Which one are you picking?
I'd win the FA Cup for sure.
Really?
Yes, 100%. Because, Champions League, it's definitely nice. It raises the prestige of the club. But firstly, I think it's incredibly important for Sonny's legacy, not just a Tottenham legacy, but a Premier League legacy, a football legacy, for him to win something with Tottenham that has been trophyless for such a long time, especially as team captain. I think that's incredibly important. And, secondly, like you said, winning the FA Cup doesn't mean we can't win the Europa League Cup the Europa League either. So, there is still the opportunity to advance to the Champions League by winning the Europa League. But for me, first and foremost, I think the number one priority should be to win a trophy. It will, I think, change the mentality of the club entirely if you finally are able to win a piece of silverware. For me, that's the number one thing.
Yeah, I would say as a non-Tottenham fan, I'd be greedy and say I still want to see Sonny in the Champions League just because it's the biggest stage. But I think I would agree with you for the mentality of the club. Just getting your hands on that one trophy and seeing the players lift it up could change the whole mentality and make them greedy and want to win more. We'll see. I believe at the moment Tottenham are looking okay in all three of those competitions, like we said. It would be great to see Son Heung-min raise something. I won't get my hopes up, but we'll see. In the meantime, guys, we're going to have all the latest Son Heung-min Tottenham content for you on this channel. I'll link Jason and mine socials to the bottom of this video. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. We'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.